Dijeron igualdad, pero esta vez me separaron. Dijeron mucho, pero no se olvidaron de callarse. Cuánto odio por mi piel sembraron. Dijeron historia y la tergiversaron. Dijeron guerra, muerte, odio y nos culparon. Siempre. Enfermedades, epidemias nos contagiaron. Exterminación de mi fauna complace a tus mercados. Dijeron riqueza y todos se lo robaron. Oro, platino, diamante, a la fuerza se lo llevaron. Y la actualidad es tan triste que todo aquello que dijeron es lo mismo que hoy se dice más. ¿Quién dice, quién explota, quién se beneficia? El asesino, el mismo que da las noticias. Hay una cuenta fácil que siempre me da las grandes riquezas, de dónde vienen y hacia dónde van.
Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao. Nati Dre es afroresistencia, cultura ancestral, afrodescendencia, solidaridad. Esa es la esencia, la diáspora africana eleva la conciencia, conciencia negra, universal, progresista y transcultural. Negros y mestizos revolucionando, pueblos caribeños y africanos en un solo bando. No más explotación, colonialismo interno, no más confusión, supremacía blanca en el Babilón. Soy rojo, negro y verde, afroliberación. Mientras más negro, más represión. Somos creadores, recupera tu visión. Mi misión es educar con amor, contra el silencio, vivo sin temor. Independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao, independiente como los Mao Mao, concluyente como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao,
como los Mao Mao. Somos resistentes como los Mao Mao.
What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening? It's the Rise Up Morning Show. You know what we do around here, boy. We got Boona up in this piece, man. Y'all could just go back to sleep. It's Boona here right now. Boona about to wake the whole world up. You know what I'm saying? He got the whole world in his hands. Shout out to my man Boona. You know what I mean? Fernando's in the building. Isaac over there losing his mind. Talking about, I was thinking about not waking up this morning because he over in Vegas somewhere. He think he can sleep late. We don't play that hand. You know what I mean? I'm Kalanji Changa. This is the Rise Up Morning Show. We tell you to wake your ass up. Rise up. Rise up. Double entendre. How y'all brothers feeling, man? Y'all all right?
All good.
Okay. Y'all acting like y'all sleep for real.
Good. feeling good. Feeling good.
Hold on. We went through all that shit. I'm going all crazy. How y'all doing? I'm all right. That's how we doing? Right. I tried, y'all. I tried. Anyway, Fernando, you good, man? You on mute, so we know you ain't saying that. Fernando on mute. He look like he's saying a whole bunch of stuff that can't nobody hear. Thanks, Fernando.
Hey, man, I'm up. Y'all can hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, my bad. Yeah. I said I'm up, man, ready to rise up. I'm here.
Okay. I'm a little confused because I know y'all like, what y'all, 6 hours ahead over in France?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
6 hours ahead. How y'all still asleep and I'm wide awake? I'm confused.
Okay.
I understand Isaac be asleep when everybody else woke. So that's, it's all good.
Long days, man. It's because it's long days. We back from work, man. All that,
Man, there y'all go with that, man. See, anyway, man, I should have stayed on the other morning show. Anyway, welcome to the Rise Up Morning Show, but we don't give a fuck. Anyway, I had a great weekend. I'm late. I know you all had a show yesterday, and the show was dope. Shout out to the guest, Francisco. What's his name?
Francis Mendoza.
Francis Mendoza. Yeah. I was about to say Francisco Mendoza. Francis Mendoza. Excellent show. You know what I mean? We always, it's always good to get an understanding of what capitalism does and the different forms and how it affects people across the globe. You know what I mean? So, that's a beautiful thing. I had the opportunity real quick. I want to shout some folks out. Went to a couple conferences this week in Atlanta. There was a Stop Cop City conference. It was invitation only. So if you didn't hear about it, then you might not have been invited. I don't know if I'm supposed to talk about it, but I don't really care. It is a need to stop cop cities plural, internationally, because we recognize that Cop Cities goes beyond just what's going on here in Atlanta. It goes, it's what goes on in France, what's happening in Venezuela, what's happening in the Sudan. You know what I'm saying? The School of Americas, the work that they're doing to destroy folks across the planet. School of Americas right here in the state of Georgia. You know, what it's doing to Latin America with the mercenaries that they're training, the Colombian mercenaries to take out folks in Haiti and take out folks in Venezuela and other places, the work that they're doing in the Dominican Republic, etc. You know what I mean? That's why the Rise Up International morning show is important, because we're not going to just talk about what's going on in our backyard. We're talking about what's going on globally. Now, we didn't necessarily talk about all that at that particular conference, but I'm just telling you what we talk about because of the fact that this is where it's at. Also had the opportunity, shout out to the Jericho movement. They had a powerful conference, got to rock with a number of different veteran political prisoners, including my man, Kazi Torre, Jalil Muntaqin, who served 50 years in a joint BLA member, Ashanti Austin, who you've seen on this platform, Dharuba bin Wahad, and many others. You know what I mean? And I'm going to tell you, brother, something, man. You know, Rise Up Morning Show was discussed a couple different times, all jokes aside. Folks are loving what we're doing. You know what I mean? People coming up. I was kind of surprised. I'm like, man, you know, y'all sure y'all talking about the Rise Up Morning Show and not RSTV? He's like, nah, we talking about the Rise Up Morning Show. So so definitely
good to hear.
You know,
that's good to hear.
Definitely. Anyway, so shout out to all those comrades that was out here over this past weekend. Anyway, how y'all feeling, man? Y'all good or what?
We're good, man. Shout out to you, man. We Isaac and we all try to hold it down for a little bit, man.
Okay.
But we
I
good.
see y'all.
Yeah.
I saw y'all holding it down. You know what I'm saying? Isaac, I don't know why y'all let him behind the buttons. We ain't gonna talk about that.
Isaac on the ones and twos, man.
Listen, if there was like a nuclear war button, we know not to have Isaac near the button. Gonna flip like, you know what?
You really gonna line me with Ecocide? You gonna line me
brother.
with Ecocide?
See, we got a sensitive crew, y'all. I gotta watch what I say. You know what I'm saying? I gotta get my pronouns right. I gotta get everything going on around here. These brothers don't care. They come for you. You know what I mean? But anyway, no, I'm definitely not gonna line you with Ecocide.
Nah, it's all jokes.
Yeah. No, definitely glad to have you on. It's a lot going on in the news. I think that your girl Kamala Harris chose her new vice presidential candidate. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna be breaking him down over the next couple of days. Tim Walz. I saw some folks getting excited about that. Great pick, so on and so forth. Whew,
a lot of confused people out there, man.
Man, our confusion is confused. You know what I'm saying? It's just like it's off the chain right now. But nevertheless, we're gonna win in spite of ourselves. Revolution is still the solution. You know, from San Francisco to the south of France. You know what I mean? It's the same imperialism. You know what I mean? And we're gonna make sure that we stay on the right side of the barricades. Anyway, I heard we got a dynamite guest coming on shortly. You know what I mean? Heard you notice comrade, and also heard that if Boona and Fernando didn't bring them on here, then they's gonna get booted out. So you know what I mean? They're over there looking nervous. They like, please, Kalonji, don't say that. Don't, you know what I'm saying? So we going, yeah. You want me to impress? They tried to get me to wear a bow tie and whatnot. I told them we weren't going out like that. You know what
like
I mean?
The nation, man.
Oh man, these cats throwing rocks, man. Shout out to the nation, man. Go ahead on, man. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick spin off for a Black Power break, I think, unless you brothers had something to say.
Let's do it.
No doubt. We'll be back. Rise Up Morning Show.
Rise up.
Yep.
Africa. In San Francisco, on African Liberation Day, Brother Walter Rodney an African historian, noted both the importance of African Liberation Day in terms of our African identity and some of the root causes for our problem of identification.
I have met brothers and sisters who say that their mother tongue, quote unquote, is French, Spanish, Dutch, Portuguese, as well as English, which we speak. And because of this, we have a problem of identification. We do not know whom we are. And that is why this gathering is of great symbolic importance, because it is an act of identification. We are saying that we identify with the African people of the African continent. We are saying that we are an African people. And when we make this identification, have no illusions about the fact that this is a very revolutionary initiative. It is a rejection of every other form of identification which the white society has asked us to accept. Let me draw your attention to something which white universities and white libraries practice. And this is a university community. Numerous universities lie around this land. You go into their libraries and check the Library of Congress cards. Under Europe or European, you will find all entries listed concerning the continent of Europe. You will also find entries listed about Europeans in East Africa, Europeans in North Africa, Europeans in Asia and Australia. Look under the Chinese, you will find entries listed not only for mainland China, but for Malaysia and for the Chinese in North America. But look on the Africa and the Africans, the only entries on the Africans relate to the continent itself. There are no entries on the Africans overseas. There is no such category. Africans who have been raped from the continent mysteriously disappear and become Negroes.
You already know what time it is. Walter Rodney. Very important. I would say young man. You're talking about a brother who was 36 years old when he was assassinated. You know what I'm saying? One of Guyana's finest. When you're talking about guerrilla intellectuals, that is one of the premier guerrilla intellectuals. I think that he is an example of when you can take what Chairman Fred Hampton would say, we take your bourgeois skills and make them act on the side of the people.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Whatever you learn, because you get so many people talking about they come out of the academy, you get so many people who know every damn thing in the world, and they have disdain for African people. And as he said, they become Negroes. You know what I mean? So we get a whole lot of these Negroes, regardless and in spite of wherever they exist on the planet. You know, so I'm happy to be in great company with individuals who put their people and their politics over profit and persuasion. You know, so you're checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. We have a very special guest coming in from brothers in France as well.
Yes.
Right on.
He is.
Let's talk about him, man. Give us an introduction so we can know what time it is.
No doubt. Yeah. Actually, it's good that we just saw, Walter Rodney, because our guest is a big time, student of Walter Rodney, and he actually wrote a book on him. But yeah, our guest is, we have another great guest over here on the Rise Up, as always. Our guest is, no stranger to Buna and myself, as he is, the president of our organization, the Pan-African Legal Moja, the LPU. He's a historian, an author, a consultant, an organizer. He's one of the most important French-speaking voices in Pan-Africanism today. He has been putting in work for over 20 years. He is the author of 3 very important books, which include The Empire That Does Not Want to Die, A History of France-Afrique, Walter Rodney, a committed historian, 1942-1980, and Africa Unite, which is this piece right here. Africa Unite, A History of Pan-Africanism. He is originally from Benin and Martinique, joining us live from Paris, France, right here on the Rise Up Morning Show, Dr. Amzat Boukari-Yabara.
Greetings. How you doing, comrade?
Yes, greetings. I'm fine. Fine, and you?
Honored to have you on the show today.
Okay, great.
Especially when we heard you was a Rodneyite. Yes.
Absolutely, yes. Okay, it's a pleasure to be with you. I'm really excited to see that there are many good vibes here, and that we can get a very important view on what is happening in Africa and in the world today from a different perspective. And I think that Walter Rodney used to analyze historically and politically many things about the place of Africa in modern politics, in economics. And I think that his analysis is still relevant today in our struggle. And he also shows that we need to link activism with scholarship. And this is very important that we strengthen this link between those two activities. Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Fernando, in the introduction, you forgot to mention two other books which are quite short. That's probably why you didn't mention them, but they're important because he also wrote two books one on Mali. I don't know if you can guess.
Oh yeah. True.
Mali. Another on Nigeria. Okay, these are probably countries that we'll be talking about. So
yeah, no doubt.
Amzat has written both on the French neo-colonial empire, its impact in Africa. That voluminous book that has been re-edited last year, I believe. But he also wrote actually on two countries on the continent in West Africa. And he was born in Benin, which is neighbor to Nigeria. So I think that was also important to point out.
I was gonna ask Amzat if he could actually himself, like, I did a little intro, didn't do too much justice. I was gonna ask you, Amzat, if you could tell us a little bit more about yourself, and also about the Pan-African Legal Moja.
I think myself, I'm not really interested. I think you said the most that need to be known. I'm a historian. I'm president of the Pan-African Legal Moja. I wrote several books. I'm a scholar. I'm working on activism and trying to organize different movements. And I was in Spain last weekend. I was in Venezuela last weeks. And I think we need to be on the ground and also in the books. So this connection is very important for me. So it's very good that you mentioned my books on Mali and Nigeria. As an activist, as president of Pan-African Legal Moja, I have the chance of leading one of the few Pan-African organization in the so-called French-speaking world that has a global dimension. We are present in Europe, in Africa, a little bit in the Caribbean, especially in Haiti. And we have international relation with several other movements of liberation, of resistance. And we are trying to contribute to the making of the United States of Africa. With an anti-imperialist vision. I think it's really important. We must fight imperialism of the geopolitical competition that knows who is who. And it is also very important in those times when we are speaking of Russia and China in Africa against French, British, and US imperialism. And our organization is self-funded, so we received money from no one. But if there are Pan-African billionaires who want to give us money, why not?
You know so,
we would
right?
like to, yes. And yeah, I think that's the main point about Pan-Africanism. Umoja. Umoja is a word that means unite in Swahili. And we are advocating progressive, anti-imperialist, and how can I say, independent Pan-Africanism. We're also working on the issue of reparation, and we have internal groups, working groups, that are working on several specific points, like Congo, like the situation in the Caribbean, or the situation in Senegal. And yeah, so if you want to join the Pan-Africanism Umoja, you have to fill up a form and then submit to an interview. And then you join the organization and you contribute to our movement. So I think that's the main point, yes.
Yeah.
Right on. Definitely appreciate your work. And I appreciate our brothers for bringing you on today, because, you know, they were set tripping. I was like, man, when y'all gonna bring some brothers, you know, from the diaspora on? They said, man, you know, we just want popular folks in the U.S. I'm like, man, listen, man, we got to work harder than that. But anyway, I'm just talking trash, my brother. I want to ask you, because I know you mentioned that you just left Venezuela, and for folks who are following politics, which should be all Africans should be following the politics of the world, because it affects us and impacts us regardless of where we walk or what we talk or how we sound or whatever the case is, right? Language, etc. I want to ask you, you know, there's a lot going on with Nicolas Maduro and the elections and whatnot. You know, from you being on the ground, what would be an analysis you would give on the state of Venezuela right now? And in the past, you know, we looked at Maduro a certain way, but now it's a kind of blurry from an outsider's perspective. But you know, since you've been in the past couple of weeks, give us an analysis on, you know, from your vantage point.
Yeah, indeed, we cannot understand Venezuela without Cuba. And Venezuela is under attack since 25 years, since Chavez came into power with a project of Bolivarian revolution, a socialist revolution. And when you say the word socialism in the Western Hemisphere, especially in the Americas, it's like terrorism. So once Chavez came into power, all the plan of the US was to overthrow Chavez, to stop the revolution, the Bolivarian revolution, and to cut the connection with Cuba. Because Cuba and Venezuela are working together. They launched the ALBA, that is a regional organization based on people's sovereignty, the Caribbean and Latin American people's sovereignty. And what Chavez did is to give power back to the people. And this is very important. He gave power back to the people. He organized several elections. Venezuela is a country with the most numerous number of elections. In 25 years of the Chavez revolution, we had almost 30 elections. So they had a specific way of putting the people at the center each time there is a political crisis. So I think the last election was clearly won by Maduro with a small advantage of 1 million votes against the opponent, with a puppet of US imperialism, with a puppet of 4 right-wing South American government, and the popular support is in favor of Maduro. The opposition did not get the same strength of mobilization than the Chavez revolution, and the main difficulties in the last 5 years or 10 years, I would say, is the rising sanction on the economy of Venezuela that made life very difficult for the people. So millions of people left Venezuela, mainly for economic reasons. And it is quite surprising to see how many people, like you said, think that sanctions were imposed by Maduro to his own people. They did not get that sanctions were imposed by the US to make the people revolt against Maduro and to try to take over Venezuela. So the answer of the Bolivarian Revolution was to launch an international resistance. So each year I went to Venezuela. I participated in several anti-imperialist and socialist meetings with many people from South America, from Asia, from Europe, from Africa. So I think that today, when we are supporting Maduro and the Bolivarian Revolution, we are supporting the liberation of the people in the so-called Third World. I think we have also to mention that the situation is very, very difficult because Venezuela is fighting the United States of America. Maduro is personally fighting Elon Musk. And I think that most of the people don't understand what does it mean to fight, frontally speaking, the United States of America. Venezuela is in the Caribbean Sea. It is an American sea. It is a property of the US. All that is in this hemisphere since Monroe Doctrine belongs to the US. And the way Venezuela is facing imperialism is something that we need to understand. They are not fighting a small power, they are fighting the main imperialist power. And for this, we must support the Bolivarian Revolution. It doesn't mean that the Bolivarian Revolution is perfect, but it is clearly the right way to go for the people. We cannot support the opposition because this opposition is right-wing, far right-wing, racist, xenophobic opposition. But in the meantime, we have to renew the dynamics of the Bolivarian Revolution. So I think that this is very important. A revolution that is 25 years old needs a new breath. And this is why the connection with Africa is important. And our friends in Venezuela, in the Bolivarian camp, must understand that their fight is also meaningful for African liberation. And we need to connect, we need to work together. And this is why for many years with the Pan-Africanist Umoja, we are working with the Bolivarian government, we are working with Afro-Venezuelan, and we are also trying to enlarge the relation between Africa and Latin America.
I know. Anyone else has questions they want to start off with?
Yeah, I think what Amzat said about the importance of supporting revolutions is crucial because we live in countries where the left has not been successful in carrying out any revolution. Okay, we have far left-wing parties or groups that were never able to carry out a successful revolution. That's why the only countries where you actually had socialist party who came to power were actually located either in Latin America or in Africa. Those are where most of the, also in Asia. Those are most of the social experiments that have been implemented throughout the world actually existed. So I think it's also a reminder for us, especially those who are close to the so-called left-wing parties of movements, to be very careful when it comes to not only analyzing that type of situation, because the U.S. imperialism is investing billions of dollars, okay, in information warfare, in propaganda, in economic sanctions, obviously, which, as Amzat said, is aimed at overthrowing the regime. So I think it's very important for us to make a hierarchy in terms of priorities, because obviously you see some people are more, spend more time discrediting the Bolivarian revolution than actually fighting U.S. imperialism. So I think at some point it also, calls into question some of our own assumptions about what a successful revolution should look like. Okay, because in the Europe and the West, people tend to theorize about revolution, and they are so much into theory that they find it very easy to criticize people who actually implement revolutionary project, whether it's successful or not. This is up for debate, but I think that we should prioritize our, make hierarchies in terms of priorities. I don't think the priority today is to support U.S. imperialism when it comes to overthrowing the current Bolivarian revolution.
Yeah, and also you have to see that it's really easy to criticize resistance all over the world. It's easier to criticize resistance than domination. And I agree in the way that I was in Spain. And in Spain, when you want to criticize your opponent, you tell him, "Oh, you are from Venezuela, you are Bolivarian." It's an insult. So this is Venezuela is under the same kind of treatment as if it was an African country, as if it was Congo, Mali, Niger, and this is why we have this kind of solidarity. The bashing is very, very, very strong, and what these people is doing is a lesson of resistance, and I think that Venezuela is also the reason why we had some political change in Brazil, in Bolivia, and in other countries where the left went back in power, because when the right was in power in those countries, many opponents found support in Venezuela. So I think that there is a kind of hypocrisy, even in the left-wing government in South America, except for Cuba, of course. I think of Lula from Brazil, and also Gustavo Petro in Colombia. They have this kind of reticence to give back to Venezuela and to Chavez what is Chavez and Venezuela. And in the meantime, you have the migrant situation. It's the same kind of exploitation of the migrant crisis, saying that all the Latin American countries are suffering from the Venezuelan refugees. And so they had to organize an intervention against Maduro so that the Venezuelan refugees would go back to Venezuela. But it's the sanction that needs to be uplifted, indeed. But that's the economic war. Yeah.
Talking about resistance and switching gears a bit, I wanted to get Amzat, your analysis on the unfolding developments especially in West Africa. So we mentioned that you wrote a book on Nigeria. We've seen recently that there have been huge demonstrations in Nigeria against inflation and also the policy of the government. The same government that wanted to invade Niger last year, military invasion under the guise of the ECOWAS. Niger, that is in a country that has a formal alliance with two other countries in West Africa, Mali and Burkina Faso, which have formed the alliance of Sahel states. So I wanted to get your analysis on what is going on in Nigeria, and also in the countries that are members of the alliance of Sahelian states. So, yeah, are we witnessing a new wave of anti-colonial resistance in West Africa, or do you think that this is a movement that might be co-opted for different purposes? And I'm specifically focusing on West Africa because we don't really have time to talk about other contexts such as Kenya, where we've seen recently that the people have, rose up against the president. So I wanted to get your if you can provide us with a brief overview. Obviously, we are constrained in terms of time of the anti-colonial revival in West Africa.
Yeah, briefly, I would say that those countries in West Africa, especially French former colonies, did not get a real independence in the 60s. It's been 64 years they were supposed to be independent, and they still have a colonial monetary franc. They still have, for many of them, a presence of French military soldiers, and they are still under the tutelage of Paris at the international level. So this neo-colonial situation is not new. There were attempts in the past to break with it. I think in the case of Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara in the 80s. And so in the last 10 years, we had a new wave of anti-colonial movements, especially among the youth, the West African youth, that is connected with the social networks, that is more and more critical to our own governments. And this led to several uprisings and several military coups, especially in Mali, then in Burkina Faso, and then in Niger. And we had a new kind of military in power. They are more patriotic. They are thinking of the benefit of the people more than their pockets. And they also decide, and this is really important, to change the situation on the security point. We had to know that since 10 years, more than 10 years, Sahel is under attack due to the war in Libya, the NATO intervention in Libya, and also different cases of destabilization. And in this war against terrorism, France took control of Sahelian states. They had a military presence, and this military presence was expelled from Mali, then from Burkina Faso, and then from Niger. And it was replaced by Russian military support. And I think that the main central point is Niger, because in Niger we also had US military bases, and the American who shared one of their bases with the French and other military forces were asked to move. And this is the most expensive investment, military investment of the US in West Africa, and even I think in Africa. Huge drone bases that was supposed to control Niger, Libya, and the whole area of Sahel. And we are seeing many things. We have the people's revolts against their former neo-colonial government, and with a support to the new military regime. That is one thing. Then we have the geopolitical shift with Russia being more present in West Africa and globally speaking in Africa, and also the Chinese and Turkey. And in the meantime, the relocalization of Western imperialism, especially French and US imperialism, on the coastal states of West Africa. And those coastal states of West Africa belong to the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, that was about to launch a military intervention against Niger. So Mali and Burkina Faso decided to join with Niger to form a military alliance. That is the alliance of the Sahelian states and now the Confederation. What the people from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are calling for is not a confederation, but a federation. The people are asking that Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger unite in one single country. And this is this kind of process that is a new vision of the old integration process of the 60s that could lead to a new way to the United States of Africa. In the meantime, we have Nigeria. Nigeria is the biggest African country. One on 6 African is from Nigeria. It means that Nigeria is bigger than all Africa. It's one of the first economic power. It's a military power. I remember that when I wrote the book on Nigeria, Nigeria was under attack from Boko Haram, and many French military advisors, were saying that Nigeria would collapse. And the collapse of Nigeria is the goal of French imperialism. In the 60s, we had the War of Biafra. France supported separatists in Nigeria because it's an oil country. And they were also aligned with Ivory Coast and Cameroon and Gabon against Nigeria. It's the same case also in North Mali. There was a project of creating a new state that is Azawad from the French port to take control of the natural resources, because at last, the main point of all this reconfiguration is the natural resources. So Nigeria, I think, is very interesting country. It's a very complicated country. It's sophisticated on the point of the political system, but it's a little bit a mess when you look precisely at the situation. On the last election, there was a third candidate, because Nigeria is like the US. You have two parties, the Congressists and the Democrats. And at the last election, we had a third candidate from the Labour Party, Peter Obi, who made a very interesting score. And he was on a kind of left-wing political vision. And we see more and more in Nigeria, the population asking for social justice, asking for wealth redistribution, asking for a political change. They are fed up with the corrupt politician. So I think that Nigeria is a 200 million people country. So I think that if this country move in this kind of change, this kind of popular mobilization, like we saw example in the last years, it could be very interesting, and it could also end in a global West African revolution, from Senegal, where we had a political change with Ousmane Sonko and Diomaye Faye, who were opponent to the France-Afrique system, to Nigeria, that is the way towards Central Africa. So all West Africa today is in a very interesting situation. In each country, we have a political situation that is quite changing, and the dynamics of the alliance of the Sahaelian states could be maybe the dynamics of the next years, if in the other countries we had also political change. So what we have to do right now is to support the people's movement in the Sahaelian states, to support the Pan-African movements in the other West African states, and also to fight the Western propaganda, and to be very vigilant to the way the US and France are trying to reorganize their military control of West Africa, because they were in the Sahel to fight against terrorism, but their presence developed terrorism. So when they say that they are now moving to the coastal states, especially Ivory Coast and Benin, you can be sure that if they do, in 2 or 3 years, we will speak of terrorism in Ivory Coast or terrorism in Benin. This is the way it goes each time imperialism is putting his foot in a country where they really want to take control of the resources. And last point concerning the Russian Federation, what we saw in the last 2 days is a Ukrainian presence in Mali. We had a statement of the Ukraine embassy in Senegal, who was congratulating for a terrorist attack against the Malian forces. And it shows the way that Africa is more and more the ground of imperialist battles. Because the war between Russia and Ukraine, and it was not a surprise, it is not a surprise, will probably continue in Africa. This is why Ukraine opened many embassies in several African countries. And I think that this situation is not in the favor of Pan-Africanism. We must be very aware not to become the battlefield of all the imperialist power. We need to keep focus on our liberation, and our liberation requires the expulsion of all foreign military bases from African grounds.
Appreciate that. Thank you. I wanted to stay on that for a little bit, and you mentioned the importance of the confederation becoming a federation, right? And from from a historic point of view, what would this mean? What would this mean? And is there any time in history, I think you mentioned the 60s, that you could maybe compare this to as a point of reference? And also, as a second part of the question, I wanted to ask you, what do you think are some of the most important things that we can do as Africans in the diaspora in order to support this alliance and to support the resistance of this alliance?
Yeah, like I said, those countries never really get independent in the 60s. And a federation will be a sign of sovereignty. It means that the peoples of Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger take the decision. They decide to unite. Yeah. And I think this is really important, that they decide to unite with a single military system, with probably a common currency, because they're trying to move out of the French neocolonial monetary zone, with a single foreign affair, and also probably with how can I say, with a strategic vision concerning their relation with the rest of the African countries, because they will have to negotiate with the other ECOWAS states some of the issues that were linked to the freedom of circulation of the population, the market, and so on. So a federation will be a very important geopolitical change in Africa, because it could fasten other project of unity, of African unity, and it would show that African can make history. It's really important because when we think of Africa, we think of Balkanization. We think of cutting the Congo into several pieces. We think of separatism. And the notion of unity needs to get some concrete example. The youth needs to see some concrete example of unity, not just words saying, we must unite, we must. No, we need to see, concretely speaking, some forms of unity in our daily lives. So another point is that federation will make this single country an economic power, because we have natural resources, we have gold, we have uranium, we have other resources, water, etc. So it is about a strategic development of the Sahelian states, and I think it's really, really important. So what we can do in this way, like I said, we need to explain the necessity of uniting Africa, not only Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, but uniting Africa. So we must be firm on our Pan-African position. It's really important. Next, we need also to explain to those who don't understand it, because we have many people who have a very neo-nationalism, we are quite chauvinistic, who have a xenophobic vision of the Alliance of Sahel States, why it is also important for them to support it. I think especially of the people of Senegal, because we have a kind of war between people of Senegal and people of the Alliance of the Sahelian State, because those of the Sahel states say that people from Senegal, they are cowards, they are traitors, they are with the French, they are French puppets, etc. And in the meantime, those from Senegal say that they did not elect their president to be the president of ECOWAS or the Alliance of the Sahelian States. So we had a kind of competition between African people. So we must explain that the interests of African people, of West African people, are the same, whether they be in the alliance or not. It's the same interest. So we had to keep on preaching Pan-Africanism, and in the diaspora we must mobilize. I think there was a demonstration last Saturday in Paris.
Yeah.
It should be every Saturday in Paris a demonstration for the Alliance of the Sahelian States. And it is important because France is at war against those states. Not directly a military war, but at least a diplomatic, a communication war with Mali, with Burkina Faso, with Niger. And we have many people from Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger who are living in France as if there was nothing wrong, nothing special. So this situation is important, and the last point is that we need to connect this fight with the global fight concerning the liberation movement in Palestine, in Kanaki, etc., in the Caribbean.
I know the comrades have a question, but I just wanted to point something out real quick, because I love what you just said about folks living basically like everything's all good, like it's sweet, right? Yeah. I think with propaganda is such an incredible thing.
Okay, I think it was a two question. No? So that was.
Yeah, Isaac actually had a question, but
yeah.
He was reflecting on what you said on the people who act like nothing happened in their own country.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm just saying that because, like, living in the U.S., looking at France, the propaganda is France is for lovers. You know what I'm saying? The average African. Can you hear me, brother?
I don't know if his mic is open.
Can you all hear me?
You can't hear Kalanji? I hear you, Kalanji.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you too.
You don't hear Amzat? You don't hear Kalanji?
Yeah, I did not hear, but maybe it was he speaking?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, he was speaking.
Okay, great. Okay.
Can you hear him now?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. So basically what I was saying, I was to your point about
that right now I cannot hear you. It's like a strange. Yes, weird.
They don't want him to hear me, huh?
Yeah, they're working against us here.
That's because they know you'll be attacking France. So there's like
this is an example.
French virus that has been.
I'm attacking France and the U.S.
It's looking like they don't want that connection right now.
Yeah, but this is an example. Perhaps he can unplug his headphones and everything. Maybe
it's like a whisper. I
try to unplug your headphones, Amzat. Try to unplug the headphones.
Okay.
Yeah. So. Yeah, but we definitely give thanks for the comrade.
That's crazy.
Can you hear us, Amzat? Wow.
He hears the rest of us.
Yeah, he can hear the rest of us, but not Kalanji.
That's crazy.
I feel discriminated against.
I see your lips. Oh, but
I'm gonna be quiet. You all can talk. See if he hears you guys.
See if he hears you, Isaac. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
He can't hear you either.
Amzat, you don't hear. You just hear me and Boo.
Yes.
Wow, that's very strange.
That is,
Maybe he should reconnect.
That you
Maybe
can hear him.
connection.
yeah, we hear everybody. Me and Buna, we hear
Okay.
everybody.
Can you log out and log back in?
Okay.
Try to log out and log back in. As Kalanji breaks it down.
You're checking out Rise Up Morning Show, where they got their own French microphones and headphones.
I knew the jokes was coming.
I thought it was just me that Isaac started talking like, nope, don't hear him either. Anyway, I don't know what's going on, but that's the brother's definitely breaking it down. What I was saying was, peace, Amzat, can you hear us?
Yes, it's good right now.
Okay, you came back looking clearer and everything. Everything is crisp now.
Mm-hmm.
I was saying that your headphones was discriminating against us, against the brothers in the U.S. But what I was saying on my long rant was basically to the point that you made in regards to folks in France, much like the U.S., living like nothing's happening, like everything is sweet, like it's a wonderful thing. And I was saying propaganda and imperialism is such a devastatingly effective tool that for folks in the U.S., many who don't study politics, who don't understand revolution and don't study history, they think that France is for lovers. And we know that when folks look at the U.S. from other places, they look at it like it's a place to go to, where it's a land of milk and honey and all of that. And,
Games, like
yeah. Olympic Games, the whole nine. I'm going to have a question, but I'm going to let Isaac go ahead and ask what he wanted to ask. I know he had a couple questions.
Yeah, I have two questions. I could space mine out so that way Kalanji could be able to get his in between mine. The first one that I have is in regards to Walter Rodney. So I just wanted to start off by quoting from page 31 of Grounding with My Brothers. It says, "The road to Black power here in the West Indies and everywhere else must begin with the revolution of ourselves as Blacks, and with a redefinition of the world from our own standpoint." Recently, me and Fernando have been having conversations on air and behind the scenes in regards to, from the lens of Walter Rodney's How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. When we talk about the extraction of resources, a lot of individuals kind of brush over the fact that athletic and intellectual resources have been raped from Africa. And I'd like to, if you could, speak to that, but also speak to how that hinders the Pan-Africanist movement globally, and what are some ways that maybe your organization is working to circumvent that, or other organizations that you might know of.
I think that the issue of organizing a movement is to understand the historical development of social forces, and the way social forces must be reoriented towards the liberation of the people. And this is why we need some historical knowledge. We need to understand the roots of our material conditions, historical roots of our material condition, especially when we are under domination, under economic domination, economic exploitation, military oppression, etc. Our organization is working on educating the people. First, we are trying to educate ourselves on the need of global revolution, Pan-African revolution, and at the end, a kind of policy of reparation that is based on a new paradigm. We cannot engage our liberation movement on the path, on the way that Western world, how can I say, thought or expressed the idea of development. So we had to think about organized movement and social movement as some kind of political education system. I think that Walter Rodney is very important because he had an experience of different kind of Black people in the world. And this is also one thing that we need to keep in mind. The situation of Black people in the Caribbean, in Europe, in the America, in Brazil, in Senegal, in Congo, in South Africa, as specificities, but in the meantime, similarities. And our task is to connect specificities and similarities to find a common line to our struggles. So what is interesting with our organization is that we are working on this global vision and in the meantime on specific point and specific issue. We are also working with other movements, and I think that the priority is to unite our movements. And to unite our movement, we need a constellation of movements. So I'm not part of the idea that there should be a single Pan-African worldwide global organization. I think that we need a series of different organizations, and those organizations should operate in a Pan-African ecosystem. And this is part of the idea of an academic, how can I say, a political freedom, a Pan-African freedom, and also a legacy of the way Amilcar Cabral was understanding the need to organize our movement. A last point I would say is the necessity to be on the ground. We need to think precisely what we can do and not speak of what we cannot do. It's kind of realism, a pragmatism. And this is very important that we did not develop Pan-Africanism in a kind of a utopian movement, but precisely on the way of a movement that can change the world. And when we say this, we add, whatever the case, proximity with Marxism, with the idea that the goal is not only to analyze the world as a philosopher, but to change it, to change the material condition of the people. And I think that those points are very important. We need to change the material condition of the people. And to change the material condition, we have also the duty to change their state of mind. So all those points, I think, are very interesting. And when I worked on Walter Rodney's life, especially his time in Dar es Salaam, it is quite interesting because in those times, Dar es Salaam was a left-wing university, but there were also some liberal academics that who came to teach at the University of Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. And some of them, like Claude Ake, who is a very famous and very powerful sociologist from Nigeria, explains that he came to Dar es Salaam with a liberal mind, and he left Dar es Salaam having abandoned his liberal mind. So what we have to do is to work on the conversion of the people, war on the neoliberal or the liberal side of the domination unconsciously, because they always think that it was like that. And this is probably one of the main tasks, to explain people that the world as we see it today is not the world as it used to be, and underdevelopment is not something normal. It is something that has been created by a system, by a capitalist system. It's like it's the same when we were speaking of Venezuela. People who think that poverty in Venezuela is the fault of Maduro. No, we have to explain the mechanism of domination, the mechanism of exploitation behind. And Pan-Africanism must take this position. It's just not have to be unity. We need to explain those issues. So this is why, very briefly, I think Walter Rodney is important for our movement, not only the Pan-African League Umoja, but generally speaking, the Pan-African movement today.
What would you say? Because you not only did you study Walter Rodney, since we're talking about Rodney, right? You decided to write a book on Walter Rodney, right? What drew you? Because as a Pan-Africanist, of course, we all have our different, reasons and reasonings and thoughts and so on and so forth. But what made you a brother born in Benin? Say that Walter Rodney is, this brother from Guyana,
Yeah, you need to know. I know it's very strange for brothers from Caribbean, the US, or English-speaking country in Africa, but Walter Rodney is unknown in the French-speaking countries. When you are speaking with many Pan-African comrades, they don't know Walter Rodney. They never read Walter Rodney. They did not hear of him. So I think it's a shame that one of the most prolific and important thinker of anti-colonialism and Pan-Africanism is unknown to most of the so-called French-speaking people, especially those who self-proclaimed as Pan-Africanists. And his analysis is still relevant. And for my part, I start meeting Walter Rodney with the Rastafarian movement. I was in the UK. I met some brothers, and I first read Groundings with my brothers. And what is interesting with Walter Rodney is that he has several facets. He's a historian. He did his doctoral dissertation on the slave trade in West Africa, especially in the Portuguese and the Spanish and the Italian world. So it's not French or British oriented. He came from Guyana, British Guyana. That is a very strange country, very unknown. And he had a global dimension. He gained a global dimension with his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa. And this book is very hard to find in France. In France, you can find all the books from Cheranta Diop, but you cannot find a book from Walter Rodney, especially his book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, that was published in 1986. Today, it's impossible to find it. So I think there is a kind of censorship, and a double censorship, because he was murdered. He was killed by a bomb, and the man who gave him the talkie-walkie, who bombed him, then escaped to French Guyana. And when I studied the assassination of Walter Rodney, I realized that France opposed to the delivery of the suspect to the justice of Guyana. So France gave asylum, gave support to the murderer of Walter Rodney, to the technical murderer, because they were commanditors of this murder. And I was also upset by meeting his daughters, Asha and Kanina, his widow, Patricia, and I had the opportunity to work on his private archives in 2005 when they were given to Clark Atlanta University. And it was really, really interesting also to learn about his vision of revolution. So recently, Verso published several of his books, like The Russian Revolution and Decolonial Marxism. And I think that we need more and more Walter Rodney today to understand the issue of capitalism, of Pan-Africanism, of Black power, to understand also the issue of Caribbean Federation, Pan-Caribbean movement, and socialism. And I think he's a very powerful thinker. And yes, that's all those things that made him did my doctoral dissertation on him. And when I decided to write the book was published in 2018, but the manuscript was ended in 2012. So it took me 6 years to get it published because the French authorities did not want to get it published. So they refused to give the grant that was supposed to be given to the publishing house, Présence Africaine. So in France, when you publish a book, you have a financial support when you are an established publishing house. But for this precise book, Présence Africaine told me that the French authorities say no, they will not support the publication of this book. So we had to find money in other places to get it published. And there was a famous historian who was supposed to write a preface, a foreword, but finally did not. So I understood that it was not easy to defend the idea of Walter Rodney in the French academic and political system, but it was important to get it known by more and more people. And yeah, this is part of the reason of my of this book. Yes. But it would have been better if I had written it in English. The success would be higher because even in France, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not
Are you
easy.
looking to publish it in English?
Hmm?
Are you looking to publish it in English?
I don't think so because there are already quite good books on Walter Rodney in English. One from Rupert Lewis from University of West Indies, one from Leo Zilling. There are many books in English on Walter Rodney, so would not be very useful, even if my book is quite different from all the others. And yeah, the main difficulty is to build. To fill the gap between the so-called linguistic zone. And if we speak of our Spanish-speaking borders, it's another issue. But we need to find a common ground. We need to use books as weapons for our political fight. And this is my contribution with the book on Walter Rodney.
So, Kalanji, now you know why the French have been trying to censor your microphone, right? It was the same, exactly for the same reason.
I see what's going on, man. I see what it is.
I'd be curious to know, but this is something that we'll probably discuss with Amzat privately, to know the name of the historian who backed down from writing the foreword of his book on Walter Rodney, because I think it, shows.
It's an African historian based in the US.
Okay.
Yeah, in a quite very good university. But I don't want to name it because I don't know what exactly happened. I don't know if there was I don't really know exactly what happened. But yeah. But I must say that is one of his colleagues also refused to write in our book on France-Afrique. And this is a difficulty for many African scholars who don't want to threaten their career to write in a committed book. I wouldn't say that they're afraid, but they choose to work with the system and not to move out of the system.
I mean, the salary is very good in the US, so that's why you never hear them. Also, this is an issue that. We invited brother Tommy Curry. I don't know if you guys.
But the drama is that in the US, you can be a scholar and an activist, and there are many of them who are both. But African, it's difficult. Yeah, they only remain on one side of the struggle, but they did not go on the other side. So
maybe they have too much to lose. You know, like that green
Yeah.
card is very precious to me.
Yeah, also.
That's why I also never hear them on the issue of police violence against black people in the US.
Yeah.
They never talk about it. They
Never,
don't talk about US military bases in Africa.
never.
And they never talk about the fate of their brothers, especially their brothers, also their sisters. But we know most of the people who are being killed by the police are actually black men. They never talk about that. And this is something, an issue that Brother Tommy Curry, shout out to him for his great work. He's now teaching at the University of Edinburgh. This is something that he mentioned when he came at the Congress, Pan-African Congress that we organized last year in November. He said there's a big gap, there's a huge gap between the African scholars who are invited, who are actually teaching in the US, where they get tens of thousands of dollars as a salary. So there's a big gap between them and the black people who are living in the US. Like those people, they can write on Africa, they can write excellent scholarship on Africa, but they will never talk about the fate of our African brothers and sisters who've been there for decades, if not centuries.
Right, and I would also go to your point, Amzat. I think that you know when you say that they're activists, I mean scholars who could be activists in the U.S. There's a limited amount, because I think there's folks that we call act as ifs. They act like they're activists. They talk it pretty good, but they're really not on the right side of the barricades. There are a whole lot who would be quote unquote popular scholar activists who are internationally known. But to put this mild and respectful as possible, they're full of shit. You know what I'm saying? Most of them are state owned. They have ties with the state. They've worked with folks like the CIA. You know what I'm saying? Work with different folks throughout their years, throughout their careers. You know, and most folks won't speak on them because they're popular, because they're known, and because they've been around for years. But the reality is, you know, there's a lot of snakes in the garden. You know what I mean? So I just want to point that out. You know, so yes. Anyone else had
Isaac had something else?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I was gonna say he answered both my questions in the first question. The second question was tying into what Kalanji was talking about, so it was just all encompassing to one, and just he'd be repeating himself at that point. No, it's been a good conversation, a really good conversation. I appreciate you coming on, Fernando, Buna, for making this happen. Because again, talking about in the context of Walter Rodney, the fact that France is you know essentially trying to erase Walter Rodney from you know that demographic of you know African people is again the problem. It's one of the root problems.
I was just reading something. Yeah. So you would ask if I had something to add?
If you had, yeah, go ahead, add something. Go ahead, Hamza.
Yeah, no, I think what Rodney is very, very important if we need to, because we need to train some new black scholars, some new African intellectuals, and some new forms of activism. And the way you organize this political movement in Guyana, the Working People's Alliance, is something that we must learn from. It was a collective movement with a small group of people. There were 14 or 15. And it was quite self-organized. And one great issue for Africa, for our movement, is thinking of new forms of organigram. How can we organize to maintain the spontaneity of revolution, but to keep some specific forms of hierarchy or discipline? And this is the challenge of the revolution. Like I say, I was in Venezuela. For some people, the Bolivarian revolution is only a few people. But when you go further, you see that people on the ground are organized, they are self-organized. You see that there is a state in the states. You see that even if the opponents take power, they would not control the country. So this is something that we need to think about, the dismantling of the neo-colonial and the colonial state. I think that's the issue concerning Niger, Burkina Faso, Mali, Senegal, all the African countries where we have a colonial state. What kind of Pan-Africanism do we need to dismantle the colonial state? There are many controversies about Diomaye Faye, the new president of Senegal. People are saying that, he's absolutely not a Pan-Africanist, etc. But even if he was the greatest Pan-African, it's impossible to move inside a colonial state like the one of Senegal. So the duty of overthrow the colonial state is very, very important. And for this, we need to build something alternative. And this is, I think, the roots of the revolution. The people must work to create something new. And this something new should be ready to take to substitute the state system. When we speak of the movement from a confederation to a federation, we are speaking about the abandonment of sovereignty. It means that the people from Burkina, the people from Mali, the people from Niger, they renounce to the sovereignty as a Niger people, a Burkina people, or people of Mali, and they unite it. So this is something very important, and we need to work on the political education. When I was in Spain, I had a talk with a brother. He told me, do you think that if there was a referendum in Senegal concerning the adhesion to the integration to the alliance of the Sahel states, do you think that the people of Senegal would vote yes or no? And I told him that Senegal is a specific country. We have a strong nationalism in Senegal. Yeah. And even if people say they are Pan-African, it's not sure that they would relinquish their sovereignty as Senegalese to share it with people from Mali, Burkina Faso, etc. Because even in the case of Gambia, that is a small country inside of Senegal, and the case of Casamance, it's complicated. So all those issues we need to work. We need to rely on Walter Rodney and Amilcar Cabral and other thinkers' vision. And this is why we are here, and this is why we have to talk about on the show also.
Right on.
You know, when I first introduced myself, when we started the show, I said I was from Senegal. So I think it was a mistake. I should have seen that. That's the only thing that I'm not saying about Senegal.
I thought Amzat was shooting. I thought Amzat was going at you, Buna. I thought he was going at you.
Hey, I was going to send Amzat donation.
I'm not going to deny what he said. Everything he said is right. I mean, there's no reason for me to be nationalist on this point. This is the mere truth.
Amzat, that's okay. Call it like you see it, brother. Go ahead.
No, but we were talking about that with Buna the other day also, about how, like, that nationalism sometimes hurts us a lot. And I feel it kind of goes to what Walter Rodney was talking about in a different way, which is like, we see that in the Caribbean, as not identifying, as a lot of people not identifying as Africans. And that way they don't see necessarily our brothers and sisters on the continent as brothers. Therefore, they're detached to certain struggle, and they don't understand how our struggle is global, right? And in that same way, sometimes brothers and sisters on the continent, they're so tied up to their flag, to their country, and they don't not necessarily always understanding how obviously the continent was carved up and divided by our oppressors, right? And so all of that, I think, is kind of part of the same thing. The same way they see themselves as different from other Africans, the country next door to them. Now, these are not my people. That's how sometimes in the Caribbean, our brothers and sisters also don't see themselves as Africans. You know what I mean? And that's what Walter Rodney was talking about earlier, identifying the importance of us identifying as an African people, right?
Yeah, there's also kind of complex of inferiority, superiority. It's very strange because in our African country, when a Black American came and wants to get the citizenship, everyone is happy. But when a brother from the neighboring country is coming, it's difficult. So it's really strange the way we had this attachment to colonial citizenship. It's special.
And, the irony is that, you know, Senegal is home to probably one of the greatest Pan-African scholars of all times, you know, Cheikh Anta Diop. So this is a great irony. I mean, he was from Senegal. He was, you know, very proud of his Senegalese roots, but at the same time, you know, he wrote the whole book.
We know it's not all of you, Buna. We know.
Yeah, we know, but he had to dig deep. He went to Cheikh Anta Diop.
You like Cheikh Anta Diop with Senegalese.
Did he be like, you know, Theophile Benga, right? Listen, we knock it off.
I mean, one of the issues that we'll have to overcome is, you know, that micronationalism. It's
all of that is a byproduct of colonialism anyway. So this is what it doesn't matter, you know. It don't matter. I think that one of the things we talk about in the group that
I don't know if Kalonji speaks.
You don't hear again, right?
You don't hear me again?
Try to go out and come back in, Amzat. Try to go out and come back in.
I think it's not the first time because okay.
Yeah. Okay. Amzat, I think you got some of those Helen Keller headphones and whatnot. We're gonna slide on that. But what I was saying is basically it doesn't really matter what you call yourself, what you think you are, who you think you are. When you're dealing with imperialism and colonialism, they don't give two shits. You can your nationalism, your religion, your culture, they're in it to chop your head off regardless. And I think that we get caught up in the bullshit because, like I said, everybody want to be somebody better than everybody. Right. At the end of the day, it's easier to be. One of the things that that Amzat said in the beginning, he said it's easier to criticize resistance than to criticize domination, right? And this is an example of that. This is saying, okay, boom, I'm down to be anything but African. I mean, straight up, I hear people, they black all day long. Yeah. There's folks that talk about black power that will not say they African. And the only time you hear them talking about the word Africa is when they're talking about how Africa was raped, pillaged, so on and so forth. But the identity with African people is void. Now, to the naked eye, you'll think we're all saying the same thing. But then you take a look at who are some of the people that they choose as their spouses, as their loved ones, etc. With all due respect, if they get an African, they'll make sure the African is as pale as possible. That's not a diss. I'm just telling you what it is because it's easy. It's easier to identify with your oppressor, even when you're saying you're against your oppressor. You understand what I'm saying? We talk about, one of the things I laugh at folks here in the US about is they always talk about how white folks are stealing our culture, right? But here it is, we're speaking in English, we're dressing like Europeans, and we're talking about how they're jacking our style. Our style is a byproduct of the colonizer style. We're not looking to leave Europe. We're looking to assimilate, even when we say we're talking about revolution. But the fact is, most of these folks don't want revolution. They want some type of reform. And we all know that you can't reform shit. You can make square shit, round shit, whatever. Call it feces, cocky, whatever you want to call it. It's still the same old shit. And that's the reality of things. So until we say that we will denounce all things that are anti-African, that are anti-cultural, then we'll be going to hell in the handbasket. We can't afford the set trip. We can't afford to say, well, I'm a Nigerian, my people from Togo, we from Trinidad, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, me living in Georgia, in the United States, these crackers see us all equally. You understand what I'm saying? We want to make distinctions as if we have that luxury. You understand? So we appreciate what you bring to the table, Amzat. You know, admittedly, I wasn't familiar with your works. I am grateful for your works, and I'm looking forward to diving deeper, you know, and introducing you to some of my brothers and sisters who are French speaking. You know what I mean? Because oftentimes, again, even you know, I know some folks that are Haitian. When you meet them, they say we're French. You understand what I'm saying? They identify with their colonized. And I'm like, you can't even say French talking about your French. What are you talking about? You know what I mean? So
it goes to what Walter Rodney talked about is like self-insulting. You know, they paint everything that's good, you know, white, and they paint everything that's bad and evil, you know, to be black. And in the midst of that, it goes back to what you're saying, Kalanji. You know, individuals, you know, working in reciprocity with white hegemony to dehumanize Africans, to devalue our revolution, you know, i.e., you know, causing mass menticide. So it's ridiculous. But yeah, I just wanted to compound on that. So
yeah, to a great extent, here in the U.S., calling yourself African is a revolutionary act at times. Just even say that you're African, because you know folks don't. Many of the folks I've run across who claim to be revolutionaries, they identify with the social theories more than they identify with the culture itself. So they can say they're Marxists, they can say they're socialists, so on and so forth. But when you talk about being an African, you know, they ran out of words. You know, those vowels and that can't roll off their tongue properly because they don't feel like they identify with being an African, because it causes one to be responsible. And I'm not saying just Africans in the United States, but I'm talking about Africans in Nigeria. I'm talking about Africans all over the place because of the fact that they're unclear about who and what they are. So it's easy to say that you're, you know, to come up with better terms to make you feel good about yourself. But we should go to a break. I am grateful. We're grateful to have you on here today.
Thank you.
I want to remind folks. Yes, I want to remind folks that today is Jonathan Jackson Day. It is on the 7th of August here in the United States. Our comrade, 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson, went into the Marin County Courthouse, and he took some folks hostage. And I want to show you all something real quick, share my screen in honor of Jonathan Jackson, because he's a very important individual. This is Jonathan Jackson here. Today, 53 years ago, 17-year-old freedom fighter Jonathan Jackson walked into the Marin County Courthouse armed with guns that were in Angela Davis's name. And with assistance of James McLean, William Christmas, and Rochelle McGee, he announced, "Gentlemen, we will be taking over from here." At that point, he took Judge Harold Haley, Deputy District Attorney Gary Thomas, and a few jurors hostage as they exited the building. Jonathan, William Christmas, James McLean, and Judge Harold Haley were gunned down when police opened fire on the van. Rochelle McGee and Thomas survived. Rochelle McGee had been held for 67 years, and he was just released last year. He ended up making his transition a few months afterwards. He was the longest held political prisoner in the U.S., along with brother George Jackson, who was Jonathan Jackson's brother. One of the reasons we commemorate what we call Black August here in the United States. So today we salute and we remember the courageous acts of 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson, who was killed in 1953. So we appreciate his work, and we pray that more freedom fighters have the strength and fortitude of a 17-year-old Jonathan Jackson. This is Black August for folks who aren't familiar. We're going to go to a quick Black Power break. We'll be right back at you. This is the Rise Up Morning Show.
Long live.
I was not allowed out of the cell at all. When I was taken out, it couldn't have been more than 10 minutes or 15 minutes. Then, of course, I was never taken outside. I would just exercise in front of the cell door by going up and down, up and down. The mind finds it very difficult to adjust to such solitude. It is such utter torture that I could feel that my mind was so tortured with lack of doing something and not communicating with anyone that I would find myself talking to the children. I would think I am thinking about them, and actually find myself in the end conducting conversations with my children as if they are with me in the cell. It becomes so difficult to keep sane with absolutely nothing to do that I would actually hunt for ants. If I had an ant in the cell or a fly, then I would regard myself as having company for the day. When I was given anything, if anything at all, it was the Bible. One day this Sonny Pool stood at the cell door and flung the Bible at my face. And he threw it and said, "There you are, pray. Pray so that your God can get you out of this cell." Sarcastic. Yes, he said I must pray for my God to take me out of the cell. And he also said, "Winnie, you are politically naked. We have finished you this time. This is your end." I was taken for interrogation a month after we had been in detention. My own interrogation, of course, is absolutely nothing worse than any of the things that have happened to those of us who are opposed to apartheid. I was picked up on Monday from the cell, and I was delivered back into my cell on a Saturday. I was interrogated right through, day and night, for 7 days and 7 nights. As they changed the teams, Sonny Pool would rub his hands and say he is waiting for that moment when they shall break me completely. By the time they interrogated me, they knew everything. They knew all about my political activities at the time. And the African National Congress, of course, was a banned organization, which meant that whatever political activities I was involved in at that time were underground political activities. There was nothing they didn't know. They had managed to break a few of those they had interrogated before me.
Rise Up Morning Show. We are back. That was Winnie Mandela. For folks who don't know, I know I was looking crazy when we came back on the screen and whatnot because someone put me back on the screen before I was ready. I was like, but anyway, this is the Rise Up Morning Show. This is Black August. We're saying, long live the dragon. Jonathan Jackson Day here today, August 7th, as we mentioned. For folks who don't know, again, we're Black August is a powerful month. Today we've had our guest, Brother Amzat, on. We'll be talking more about Black August in a couple of days. I assume I'll be on our Vital Hoop podcast, with our brother Fernando. So definitely we'll get a little in depth on that. But we have our brother Amzat. Is Amzat still with us?
I think it's still with us.
Yes. Still here. Okay.
You hear us good, Amzat?
Yeah, good.
Yeah.
Good.
Thank you for sticking around.
Yeah. Amzat has the special French headphones. You can't hear the brothers over here.
Yeah, you have a discriminatory headphone.
Man, those are francophones. Those are francophones for real. Yes, for folks who aren't familiar with francophones. Definitely, we appreciate what you're bringing to the table. We look forward to bringing you on more often. I think that it would do comrades and brothers and sisters across the diaspora justice. We only touched on a little bit of Rodney along with the other pieces that you spoke on, but I imagine that you are a wealth of knowledge just based off of the direction we was going on. We appreciate your insight on Venezuela as well. Is there anything that you'd like to leave us with before you mosey on to your next?
Just to thank you for the exchange, for the discussion, for your question, your comments. I think we need to keep the fight on. We need to enlarge the dynamics of resistance, and I hope that we get other opportunities to think of what is going on right now. In the next weeks, the next month, there will be some movement, some turmoil still in Venezuela, because the opposition is willing to overthrow Maduro, and the electoral crisis is still a good opportunity. So I read that the European Union refused to recognize the election of Maduro. So Venezuela is still in fire. We have also all those far right wing movements in Europe, in the Americas. The next U.S. election. That is very complicated, because when Donald Trump said that Kamala Harris was never black until she saw it as a political advantage, she recognized that she was black. So this issue of black leadership is very important for us. We need a black leadership in the US, but not a fake one. And in Africa, things are moving every day, and they are moving fast. So we need to keep the connection. I think that it was broken in the 60s when they killed Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, because both of them had a very interesting relation with Africa. So we need to find the spirit of the 60s, the spirit of Jonathan Jackson, spirit of the Black Panthers, spirit of MOVE organization, spirit of Pan-African movement of Walter Rodney. So thank you for the time of discussion on your show, and a luta continua, umoja ni nguvu.
Asante sana.
No doubt. We're gonna win in spite of ourselves, brother. Stay on point, and we'll see you in the whirlwind.
Thank you.
No doubt, brother. So, checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. got Isaac on the buttons, flipping us around. We don't know where we at. One minute we on one side of the screen, next minute we on the other. Definitely appreciate you, Isaac. See, never give black folks buttons. Anyway, we definitely appreciate you brothers and what you are bringing to the table. Any takeaways you all have? We got about 10 minutes. I got to ask y'all that now because you know how y'all do. Y'all get to like 2 minutes left.
I think
give a dissertation. But go ahead.
Amzat broke down a lot of important things. You know, I'm glad we got to speak a little bit about what's going on in South America and on the continent as well. Mm-hmm. And understanding once again what we always speak about, how, you know, our struggles are interconnected. You know, our struggle is global. You know, spoke a little bit about the importance of, you know, understanding the anti-Africanness that exists on a global level. You know, and like Brother Walter Rodney said, you know, identifying as African in our struggle, like you said, Kalanji, and I've witnessed this to be maybe not only in the States, but at certain points, you know, just identifying as an African can be a revolutionary act. You know, we can't keep it there, but it is reality. So
no doubt.
So yeah,
no doubt. Bruno, Isaac, you're twins. You got anything to say, brothers?
They're just chilling there.
I think today's conversation, I think people have liked it, are liking it, and there's a lot of knowledge that was dropped, but it was dropped in a way like, I mean, let's just be honest. When have you actually, in the last 3 years, let's just say that, and I'm gonna throw even BPM in there as well, there was an hour and 46 minutes of conversation regarding Walter Rodney. Where is that happening at? And so it happened on the Rise Up show, where we make it very, very much you know, important for us to have these types of conversations. So I see you guys are grinning. I don't know what you guys are grinning about.
But... we agree.
No. I would say it happened on RSTV or Black Power Media. But anyway, I ain't seen nothing. I know he said the last 3 years. I knew it was coming. But so no, definitely that was definitely a necessary piece. Boone, you have anything to say before we?
No, obviously I'll be biased because, you know, as Fernando said, Amzat is president of the organization member of. But I am very grateful to him because, you know, he could have just done like many other African intellectuals who are now teaching in the US with comfortable salaries, comfortable positions, without being connected to the masses. I think it's very important. You know, the meeting that he mentioned, the rally that he mentioned, to support the alliance, hopefully the future Federation of Sahelian States. I was there actually on Saturday, and they were, you know, the interesting part was that most of the people who attended that rally were working class. Okay, these are people who usually do not show up when we do events on Pan-Africanism and situation in Africa. So I think our organizations also have to reflect on the type of people we have as activists in our own organization, because these are working class, people from Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, who are there actually showing that they're not willing to let France destabilize or invade their countries, okay, who are very aware of the situation in their country and who are willing to take some risk, okay, including losing their own administrative stages here in France for the sake of defending not only Mali, okay, but the whole, you know, Sahelian region and even beyond that, Africa. So I think it was a very good lesson for us to learn. Amzat actually received a lot of, you know, proposals to teach in the US with the type of salaries that you can imagine. He has declined all of them. Hopefully he will keep declining them. But, you know, he's independent. I mean, he's not working for the government. He's not being funded by anyone. As he said, the Pan-African League Umoja is a self-funded organization. Hopefully we'll keep that way. But, you know, there's a lot of pressure for us, not only for the Pan-African League Umoja, but Pan-Africans in general, to look for other ways of getting money. So I think if we can maintain that, level of independence, it will be fundamental for us to be coherent with our own, political legacy and the legacy of the likes of Walter Rodney. So I didn't expect this conversation to be on Walter Rodney. So it was a very good surprise to me, and I'm grateful not only to Amzat but to my the co-host of the best morning show on planet Earth.
Yeah, I do want to big up Amzat one more time, because the work that he does very good, great work. And being the president of the Pan-African League, like, he's not just the president of our chapter, like in France and in Paris, but like, as he mentioned, we got a few chapters on the continent as well, and so he travels a lot, and he does a lot of great work. So much respect, Amzat, and this where you can find it, right here on the Rise Up Morning Show.
No doubt, no doubt. Definitely an enlightening conversation. Look forward to bringing them on again. I'm just shocked that you all are starting to bring guests on, but that's a whole nother story. No, on the real, and you just reminded me. I talked about what went on this weekend, and I dissed my own organization. I didn't mention my organization at all. We had a urban survival preparedness seminar, workshop, interactive. Shout out to our sister Ogunlewa, who taught folks how to deal with communications, shortwave radio, etc. Shout out to our brother Doc Pagans, who's been on the program last week. He did an excellent workshop on stopping the bleeding and dealing with being an immediate responder. Shout out to our brother Balogun, OJ Tade, who did a excellent workshop on African martial arts. He is the co-chair of the Urban Survival Preparedness Institute, along with myself. So shout out to the FTP movement. I also want to mention too that as I raised last week, Beyond Cop Cities, dismantling state and corporate funded armies and prisons will be out, released out of Europe, out of the UK on August 20th. However, if you check out this show right here, you can get an advanced copy by making a donation to Black Power Media. So $ BPM Reloaded is the Cash App. $ BPM Reloaded is the Cash App. Or you can go to mediablackpower@gmail.com to pick up a book before it's released here in the U.S. It's already out in Europe, in the UK. That's where the publisher is, and to be released here in the U.S. On the 20th. But if you attended some of those functions the last few days, then you already got your copy. But anyway, just wanted to point that out. This is a very powerful book, and not just because I'm a co-author. Anyway, checking out the Rise Up Morning Show. This is Black Power Media. It's the place where the revolution is met. If you want to see anyone on this particular platform, make sure you send us a message, shoot us a message, and let us know who you'd like to come on. We would also like you all to tag and share this piece. I'm going to admit it's a hard road because of the fact that, of course, this is Black Power Media, but Black Power Media was on another YouTube channel. So how do I say this by being nice? Algorithms are purposely going in a certain direction. But if you like what you see and you like the work that we're bringing, make sure you share and let folks know to go to Black Power Media Reloaded on YouTube. Black Power Media Reloaded. Let's get these algorithms going. We have some dynamite content so far. We have a number of different folks who will be joining us in the future, including our good brother, Bona's guy, who we've been trying to get on for 8 years. Finally, Dr. Horn will be on. That will be on August 15th. So make sure you check out Dr. Gerald Horn, August 15th. We have a number of other different guests and hosts coming on. And we are grateful for you all tuning in with us. And every day is a good day for revolution. Till tomorrow, we will be right back at you. We don't know who will be hosting tomorrow. That's one thing about the Rise Up Morning Show. You can tap in. Any damn body could be here. Isaac laughing. Right. Isaac like going crazy, like, no one's here. No one's here. Then someone shows up. But shout out to the rest of our co-hosts for the work that they've been putting in. And we have some new co-hosts that'll be coming next week, so stay tuned. New international co-hosts. I didn't even tell y'all that yet, huh? Aha. Anyway, Rise Up Morning Show. Till next time. Be safe out there. Salute.
Rise up.
Rise up.
Sometimes the riot is a quiet one. Well, the battle is to love yourself and function in society where voices of reason are muted by anxiety, like gaining notoriety is selling your soul. So we tend to go no deeper than the shallow water level, trying to keep us overhead in the face of all the slurs and the stares, mentally frozen, paralyzed by fear of failure and success. So we lock, stock, barrel, running while it's crumbling. All these towers and they're babbling, but the baby's in the bath and the stash under the bed on my head, spinning from the circles and the puppets and the strings that they pull. Then we move. Reactionary warfare never produces winners on the field. Feeble and foolish. What tools and what weapons are we using? We need some new ones. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Well, my inner me really a mirror for the galaxy. New time, brand new paradigms, new contracts to sign. They thought that this would all be televised, though it's happening right before our very eyes. It's on the inside, with their guns cocked. When that rock drops, standing on the rooftop, praying that the mountaintop can live inside the valley. People tell me the reward is somewhere off in heaven, like heaven's only in the sky. Like chariots are swinging, like God is something separate from yourself, from your wealth, from your lover, from your neighbor. Oh, your savior is coming in your own name, coming with the face the same. Real revolution. It's real solutions. Well, we've taken on the ways of the ones who conquer with their guns and religion and division. Got my inner me looking like my enemy. Real revolution. Where my enemy